Thank you, IK, for the warm welcome. And once again, let me take this opportunity to greet you as well and greet all our officials who made time to join us on today's topic. Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting any time, let's start with our session. And then I'm going to jump straight into the session objectives. Before I go into objectives, based on what I've learned on the session we did yesterday, I just want to request you that yesterday what happened is that we closed with so many questions still being posed by our users, and I felt some of those questions were very important for us to respond to them, but because of time we didn't want to go overboard to the time that we have actually scheduled to be here for. So I'm going to engage with that. Maybe if I pass a point whereby you have questions, you start to engage with my two colleagues, IK and Musa, on the Q&A, and they will start to respond to those questions so that you don't have to wait for them until the end of the session, because now sometimes we end up closing without responding to those important questions. So as I'm presenting, feel free to engage them on the Q&A, and then they will be responding live on those questions. Thank you. So on today's session objectives is that we have three key learning objectives. And then the first one is that we want our officials to understand how to upload final term data. Well, we have term 1 to term 3 that we do throughout the term. And then particularly we are focusing on final term submission, not your weekly submission, but final term. Reason being, we are now in term 2, meaning we just closed on term 1, and then we are still expecting the schools to submit term 1 data. That's why the topic is focused on term 1. Or it's focused on final term submission, because we are busy expecting final term submissions from the schools who haven't submitted. And then learning objective number 2 is to identify the common challenges encountered when submitting school data. We have learned that in the past, after a patch release or under some circumstances, our schools come across the errors when they try to submit, and these errors prohibit them from being able to submit successfully. So we are going to be touching on those errors as to who to contact or what do you need to do should you come across one of those errors that we are going to speak to. And then the last learning objective is for our officials to understand the data resubmission rules, because this one is also important. So we are going to take you guys through the steps that you need to follow, especially if that maybe there are those schools that submitted their data abruptly, at the end of the term, you submitted accidentally without capturing the whole data for the term. Now you have been attempting to resubmit at the beginning of the 2, and then maybe you are seeing that your data is not going through. So I'm going to explain to you which steps needs to be followed in order for you to be able to resubmit. So these are the 3 key learning objectives that we are going to be upskilling you on, so that when you go back home, at least you are able to maneuver your way around the things that are in relation to these objectives that I've just speak to now. Now, before we start with today's conversation, which speaks to final validation, it is important that we understand what is the Valistractor, especially for those officials or colleagues who actually joined the schools recently, have never received like a proper training. So we also need to understand what is the Valistractor, or a new principle for that matter. So now, what is the Valistractor? So this is the explanation of what is the Valistractor. It reads, the Valistractor is a tool that validates and extracts portions of SASAM's schools databases for the purposes of displaying on the DDD dashboard. So it validates the data, and then after validating it, it extracts it. This means it first checks it, and then after checking it, then it extracts it to the DDD dashboard. And then here it is saying portions of data. So this means it is not taking the whole SASAM's data as it is, but rather it is taking portions, which is now, if you have to mention these modules by names, is that it validates school details, human resource, learn and parent information, and module 12, which is curriculum. So these are the 4 modules, or these are the 4 portions of data that the Valistractor validates and extracts on the dashboard. So the data that we are seeing on the dashboard, it is made up from those 4 modules. And then secondly, it says that the Valistractor is a key piece in the puzzle of improving the quality of data collected and submitted by schools and used for analysis by all stakeholders in the education system. So this is the tool that we actually use to improve quality, because we know quality is a concern for all our senior officials, even at the schools, that how do we make sure that at least our data is of high quality. So the Valistractor covers that piece as well, because it checks for data quality to ensure that at least the missing gaps are minimized within the SASM's database. Now, moving right along, we are now going to look at the data journey. So this is our data journey, how the data is moved or where it starts to be captured or to exist, and then how it ends on the dashboard. So it starts here with SASMs, which is our primary source of data. The capturing everything that is happening at the school, it is captured on this program, which is called SASMs. And then the data that is here, we say it is more like a raw data. You know, you cannot interact with it unless you know SASMs very well. It is raw data that is captured here. And then from here, now it is validated using the Valistractor to check for quality and for missing data. So we run this data on the Valistractor. And then the Valistractor, it provides a graphical in a traffic light report on a database quality and completeness. It uses these three colors like a robot, whereby a red represents that the data is totally incomplete, and then the green indicates that the individual or the information which makes up that metric is actually captured at 100%. And then where we see the exclamation mark, it is telling us there is no data at all that we can that the school can report on. And then there is another color that is missing, which is amber. That's why we say it uses traffic light. There is a color amber, an amber color, which is missing. So this one tells you that your data is at 50%. It is 50% complete. And then you still have the 50% that is still missing that you need to capture. So it will give you an amber color. So these are the colors that the Valistractor uses. And then when you click on each of this metric, it will expand to show you where you need to fix. And then it also provides you with a roadmap on SASMs in case you don't know what does error mean. Then you can click on the metric, it will expand, and then it will also take you to the guide on where to go on SASMs to fix this error if you don't know how, or if you're a new administrator and then you have never received the proper SASMs training. So it will take you through those module steps. And then from here, we have the dashboard, which is now which is the data now that is uploaded via the Valistractor and is captured in data. And it is captured in a data store and then uploaded to the DDD dashboard. It is uploaded via the Valistractor. And then here, all stakeholders are then able to analyze the data and graphics to support them in performing their roles. Remember, I said here, your data on SASMs is still raw. You need to know SASMs very well to be able to know where to go to find whatever information that you are looking for. But now once it gets to the dashboard, it is now ready for you to start to engage with and then to start to pull your insights from it and plan your support and your interventions. It now starts to make sense to you because it is represented in a graphical way. And then, it is easy to relate when you are seeing data graphically represented in front of you. So this is our data journey of SASMs, where it starts, and then how it is validated to check for errors and quality, and then how it gets to the dashboard, and then what do you do with it once it's on the dashboard. Now we are now going to look at final term submission, which is now the actual submission that the schools are currently busy with for term 1. But now, before we go into submission, there are 2 important things that I want us to talk about, which is the SASMs and Valistractor versions. So for Valistractor, when you open the Valistractor, and then on the first window that appears on your screen when you open it. You can just come to the bottom right here. You will see where it says version, and then it needs to say 71.00.1. I think it's 7.001, not 71, which is your latest Valistractor version. If you are not using the 7.1.00, just know that you are running on the latest, on an old version of the Valistractor. And the good thing with the Valistractor is that if you are using it with active connectivity all the time, and when it gives you the pop-ups, we don't dismiss without reading. There is no way that you'll go on an old version of the Valistractor, because if you run it with an active connectivity and we have the latest version of the Valistractor, it gives you a pop-up actually prompting you to upload, to migrate to the newest version. So with the Valistractor, if you do not dismiss those user pop-up messages, you will never ever find yourself running on an old Valistractor version, because whenever there is a new one, it will prompt you to upgrade to the newest version. And then we have the SA sums as well. So with the SA sums, when you double click on your SA sums icon shortcut on your desktop, right, this window opens, and then on this window, on the toolbar at the top there, you can just have a look there. It will show you the version of SA sums that you are using, and it needs to be 20.20.1. If you are not having this version that you are seeing here, just know that you might experience problems when you try to extract, because these two tools are aligned, and then this one is going to require you to be using this latest version, and then this one needs to be on the latest version that I've just explained to you, which is 7.1.0.0.1. So these are the first key things that you need to ensure that you have actually upgraded on your computer at your school. And then from there, now we can look at how do you launch the Valistractor. This is your desktop icon on all your computers here in the country, except for the colleagues from Western Cape and Free State. But all the other provinces, they are using the Valistractor to upload. And then this is the icon of the Valistractor on the desktop. So you just double click on this icon, and then it will launch this window. It's going to take you to this window here, which is your Valistractor home screen. And then the first thing is that when the Valistractor open, you're going to have a window similar to what you are seeing on my screen. And then I want us to first look at this first picture that you are seeing here, this one at the front, where it says select database. This is where you now confirm here where it says file. You just check, you don't click, but you just check to confirm that it is pointing to the correct database. By default, you only have to point it once. You don't have to point it every time you run the Valistractor, only once. And then for the entire lifespan of that computer, it will always go to the correct location, unless if maybe you have made a certain change within the program files of your system. Maybe you decided to have a network, then that's when you'll have to now change to, you will have to reroute the Valistractor to look to the server now. But if you're not having the server, you have been using your computer from the beginning, you don't have to come here. It will always be looking at the correct location. So this is the first step here, but if you need to browse, then it's fine, you can browse. But normally, under normal circumstances, it needs to be looking to the correct location. You only have to point it once, and then it will be like that forever. And then we have two options here, which says verify for, and then these are the two important options that I want us to talk about. So you first need to select the year that you want the Valistractor to validate for. To say, Valistractor, I want you to only analyze for this particular year, right? So here, maybe we can assume and say, here it is saying 2018, but I want us to take the example of where we are today, which is 2021. So you'll just click on the drop-down arrow, and then you'll make sure that it is saying 2021 here, right? And then from here, you come to the term. You need to make sure that it is saying term 1, especially if you are doing term 1 submission. So it needs to be saying term 1. So after confirming these two options, you click on select. By clicking on select, you are saying you are telling the Valistractor to validate or to run the analysis within the SCSIMS database for 2021 term 1, nothing else. Not term 2 because we're in term 2 now, not term 2, but term 1. And then you say, you click on select to confirm. When you click on select, I want us to look at the top here. The only active icon here at the top is selected database. This one, all the rest of the icons are not active. So this means we first need to tell the Valistractor what to validate for or to verify for. And then after clicking on select, let's see what happens now. You will now see that at the top there, I'm having more than one active buttons. Can we see that? This one is now active, this one is active. All the icons are active on the toolbar of the Valistractor. Now we have button number 1 or icon number 1, which speaks to term to date. And then a second button speaks to final validation. What are these two icons say or mean to us? When we see term to date, we need to remember that term to date refers to the weekly submissions that occurs every Friday after capturing of learner and attendance for educators, plus any tasks that were administered during that week. So this speaks to term to date. So this is where we come each and every week. Today it is Friday. After submitting for term 1, if you haven't submitted for term 1, you still have to come back and submit your term to date, because this is going to be your submission for Monday to Friday. The work that the school did from Monday to today needs to be submitted to the dashboard. This is term to date. Now we have another one which is final validation, and then it reads, final validation refers to the end of the term submissions for all the tasks, attendances captured, and also the term promotions ran. So now, can you see this one speaks to the end of the term? So this means you only come to this button 3 times or 4 times in the whole year at the end of each term. That's when you come to this icon. Throughout the term, you don't come. It doesn't exist. You ignore it. You only focus on this one. But at the end of the term, like we are at the end of the term now, that is why we are speaking to this button to say final validation, because we are expected to be submitting term 1 data. So that's the only time you're going to use it. I hope this one, it is clear. Now, after making your selection here, after clicking final validation, immediately when you click on final validation, the Valistractor is going to now start running the validation, generating a report for you to show you that, okay, because here you are telling it now, immediately you say final validation, it knows that it needs to make sure that everything for the term is 100%. Why? Because it is end of the term. And at the end of the term, everything is expected to have been done or covered throughout the term. So immediately you click on final validation and it starts analyzing your database. It is going to analyze it waiting ahead that it is the end of the term. Wherever I see a missing data, I flag it red, because everything needs to be green, end of the term. Now, after analyzing your school SSM's database, you click on final validation, as I've explained previously. You click on this icon first, and then it will analyze your database. And then after analyzing your database, it provides you with the report. Here is your report. And then it will tell you that, okay, for school X, the learner registrations are green because it's end of the term. Assessments are green. Final promotion, green. Attendance, which is key, it is green because we have closed that term. But I want you to take note of the fact that now, because the schools are rotating, your attendance may not be green here. It might be amber. It is okay. You don't have to panic because the learners are rotating, right? So it is okay if it is amber, but it needs to be captured to show that the learners have been attending, even though it's not going to be green, but it needs to be captured. And then for the educators as well, this one, important, it needs to be green because the educators are not rotating. The learners are the one who are rotating. So this one, these people making this pie graph metric needs to have 100% attendance captured at the end of the term. So it will give you this report after running the validation to say, at the end of the term, this is how you are looking as a school. And then from there, what do you do now? Because everything it is okay here. It means now your next step now is to do what? Is to submit. let's assume that, okay, maybe registration was read. It means now the administrator will have to go back, will have to click on this registration to expand and see where are the errors, and then go back to SSMs, fix those errors, and then run the Valistractor again. But for this school, because everything it is okay, it means they are ready to submit. Now they can go ahead to the next step, which is now extract data. This is where you now click to start your submission process. So when you get to the extract data, remember, colleagues, that this icon here that says extract, supposedly the attendance here was 0% and the attendance here was 0%. This icon that we are seeing here, which is active, it was going to be like this one. It was going to be grayed out because now your data quality is not, it is below the expected target, whereby the attendance is not captured at all. So if we don't have attendance, what are we going to submit? Because we don't have attendance. And then if we don't have attendance for the educators, what are we going to submit? Because now it means the learners were not being taught the whole term. So if you see that maybe at any given time when you try to submit, this icon here that says extract, it is not blue like it is now. Maybe it is grayed out. Quickly just check that you have all the information needed by each of these metrics captured at 100%. And then you will see that maybe you'll find that your attendance is not captured properly. That is why it will be grayed out. So it just tells you, it is just telling you that with the current state of your data, we have nothing to submit. You need to first work on your data quality and capture the correct information before we can even attempt to submit. And then once that is done, then we are able to submit. So the schools or the administrator or whoever the person is responsible for submitting at the school will click at this icon. When you click here, the Valistractor, remember you need to have active connectivity. That's what I like about the Valistractor. It communicates with you. It warns you before you make a mistake. So if you have active connectivity, you need to have it actually for you to be able to submit. When you click here, the first thing that you're going to have is this pop-up. Because Valistractor, it is it is linked, it is syncing with the internet. It will immediately tell you like, okay, you are hereby, you need to actually accept and say, I hereby confirm that I have run end of the term validation. So here, colleagues, if maybe you have made a mistake and then you selected term to date accidentally, this is where you see that I have made a mistake. And then you abort immediately, you close, and then you go back to do your final validation, because here you need to confirm and then you need to read before you can accept that this is what you want to do. But now after confirming that, okay, yes, I am indeed making end of the term validation for my school for term 1, then you can accept, because you are acknowledging, you are agreeing with the information that you are reading here. After clicking on accept, it is going to run now and start to compress your school's database to prepare it to be submitted. Then when we get to this site, now it will tell you that, would you like to submit your school's file electronically? The file size is 1.23 megabytes. So here, it is telling you that your database was compressed on this screen successfully. It is now ready to be uploaded. And then what you need to do is just to click on this option to agree with the Valistractor or to confirm that the Valistractor can proceed with your submission. And then it will upload your school's database. And this process is very, 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 very short. It doesn't take long. And then within a matter of seconds, you're going to receive this confirmation to say the file was uploaded successfully. Without this confirmation, ladies and gentlemen, just know that your submission didn't go through. You need to have this message that says it was uploaded successfully. This is how you know that it went through to the dashboard. And then now based on what time you uploaded to the dashboard, your data is going to be on the dashboard within 24 hours, which means the following day when you log into your dashboard, your data will be there. And then a practice is that the principals after submission, maybe a day later, they need to log into the dashboard to make sure that the submission is indeed there on the dashboard so that they can start to engage with that data for term 1, planning for term 2. Now, here is an important piece that I also want us to talk about, which sometimes our school tend to turn a blind eye when it comes to it, which is Valistractor sign-off. What is the Valistractor sign-off? So the Valistractor sign-off is more the same with your SSM's deployment form, the one that you print from SSM's, which the principal signs to confirm that the numbers that are presented on that deployment are correct and truthful by attaching their signature and the school stamp. And then that deployment is sometimes submitted to the provincial office or to the district office, and then you are also required to save it at the school for auditing purposes. Now, on the Valistractor, we have the similar form, but we just call it a sign-off. So the best practice is that before you even extract this data, before you even start with this process, ladies and gentlemen, this one of extracting, you first need to jump this icon and come to this one that says sign off. Why do I say you need to jump it? Because this is where now the principal needs to give the administrator a final approval to go ahead with submissions, because the principal is the person who's going to account when things are not correct within the school's database. They are a custodian of the data at their schools. So they first need to see the quality of the data that the administrator is about to submit. And this is the form that has that information, the sign off. So the administrator needs to click on this icon. And then when they click on it, this window is going to appear, to pop up. And then basically what they need to do is just to select the location where they want this sign off document to be saved. So here we have made an example and say maybe you would decide to save it on the desktop. I'm sure you all know what is the desktop. When you power on your computer, the screen that you see, the first screen that you see, that is your desktop. Those icons that you see there are your desktop icons. So we are telling the Valistractor to save this sign off document on the desktop, and then you click on OK. After clicking on OK, you can just go to you can just minimize your Valistractor. You don't have to close it. You can just minimize it and go to your desktop, and then you'll see it here on the desktop. Can you see here? It is named sign off. It will have today's date. Like today, it is Friday, the 28th, 2020. It is 2021 May 2028. It will have the exact date of today, and then you can just open it. When you open it, you will see voila. It is showing you the same verification summary that you have seen in the previous screen. It is showing it again here to say, let's assume and say here it was red and it is having an exclamation mark. This is where the principal needs to decide, okay, Janki, as my administrator, I am signing and I'm giving you a green light to submit this data as it is. So Janki will then go to the Valistractor and extract it, because my principal has acknowledged the data that in the state that it is in. I'm okay with you submitting Janki, then I will submit it because he's my principal. Then what I will do, I'll just have to save this form. I need to have like a submission file in my cabinet where I'm filing all these weekly submissions and end of the term sign-off documents for auditing purposes. So should your school be audited and then officials come to your school, it shouldn't be that the principal started to disown the data. The school needs to be able to produce this form and say, okay, here is the form for that submission that maybe is in question. And then the data, it is in the same state that you are seeing it on the dashboard. And the principal actually agreed for me to submit because he signed it the way it was, instead of sending me back to fix maybe the error that we were seeing here. He decided, okay, Janki, go ahead. He signed, he's attached his signature, date, and then he stamped it without even asking how do we fix these errors. So this way, we want everyone to be able to account. If it is the admin, if it is Janky who's maybe who didn't do something correctly here, the principal will have to push me back to fix the error. But if the principal doesn't push me back, then they still need to sign this, and then we file it so that when accounting time comes, then everyone can account for the work that they're responsible for. So this is the sign of document. And then once this thing it is signed, it is when I can say then the schools can go ahead and extract, because now the principal has given them that approval or a green light to submit end of the term like it is now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to take you through the important or the critical metrics that need to be green prior to submissions. So these metrics are registrations. This is the first metric that needs to be green. Before you can attempt to do your submissions, final submission, you need to make sure that registrations metric is green. This is the one. Which kind of data, what kind of data do we find under this metric? Just to give you an example, we have like your learner information. We want to see that all the learners are assigned class. They are assigned grade, they are assigned classes, they are assigned subject, and then the subject assigned to them have teaching load as well, or they have teachers linked to teaching them. So if maybe there is a learner who's not assigned subject, or maybe is doing grade 4 and grade 1 maybe, and is assigned only subject, it is going to flag that learner, because for grade 1, he needs to have a maximum of 4 subjects. So if he's having only 1, then it's going to flag that learner to say something is wrong. So it will be red. It doesn't matter if it is 1 learner, as long as a learner is not having the subject, this one is going to be red by default, because now that learner is not going to be able to be taught, because they are not linked to any subjects. And then we have assessments. Assessments needs to be green. Oh, we have final promotion. Let's talk to them according to the order that they appear here at. The second one is final promotion. It is this metric here. Why do we say it needs to be green? Because it is speaking to the promotion from last year in 2020. So if promotions were done on SASMs, not manually, then this one will be green by default, if we followed SASMs during the promotion process in 2020. The third one that needs to be green is learner and educator attendances. These 2 metrics, this one here under learners and this one under educators. Why do we say it needs to be green? Because at the end of the term, no matter the circumstances, attendance needs to be captured, ladies and gentlemen. Week in, week out, attendance needs to be captured on a Friday. So we really don't have a reason why we should make an excuse and say at the end of the term, we don't have attendance for 2 weeks, because it needs to be captured weekly. Every Friday, it needs to be captured. So if this one is not at 100%, the Valistractor will not allow you to submit. That is why we are saying it is a critical metric. Here it is learner and educator attendance. And then the fourth one is learner and educator dates. These are the 2, the dates under the learners and the dates under the educators. They need to be green by default. And then we have item number 5, which is assessments. This one, this metric, because we are at the end of the term, all the assessments for the term must be on the system. So if we have assessments that are still outstanding, then it means we are not ready to submit, because they need to be in. That's why it is final validation. Everything for the term is in, no excuses, it's in. And then lastly, we have subjects. This one under educators. This is the teaching load. Immediately we start the year, we need to assign the educators to the subjects that they teach. We link them to those subjects. We cannot be having learners under registration doing English and to not have an educator teaching English. We need to know who's responsible for this learner's performance. So therefore, it needs to be linked to the educator subject. If it is red, like we are seeing here for this school, it is telling me that this school, the DDD primary school, they did not do their teaching load in January. And this one, it needs to be clean throughout the year because it happens when in January, once in a year, unless under circumstances, the school decide, you know what, we are going to rotate or to swap the educators, or a teacher leaves and then another one comes in. That's the only time we will have to reassign. But if things stays the same for the whole year, then you do this one only once in January, and then you are done. You can even do it actually in December before we close. After doing the promotions in December, I know it is recommended that we start to prepare for next year. We need to have the plan for the following year, the teaching load and everything. Once that process is done, then it needs to be captured on the system to make sure that in January we can quick start our new year. We don't have to be looking, doing our allocations because we have done the allocations the previous year already. So these are the 6 important metrics that needs to be clean before you do your final validation. Luckily, the slide is going to be shared with you. You can visit the slide at the end of the term and ensure that the metrics that are mentioned here are actually also clean on your report before you submit. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to speak to the new resubmission rules. So normally, once a school submits final validation, you will not be able to resubmit it again. Once you do your final validation once, that is it. You'll not be able to redo it again. But now let's take the situation that happened this year during term 1, whereby we received the patch very, very late. The circular came from National saying the schools must not submit, but only submit at the beginning of term 2 because of the late release of the patch. I know, for an example, in Northern Cape, we had schools that submitted abruptly. Despite the circular being sent, advising them not to submit, but some schools did submit incomplete data. So these schools that have submitted before capturing everything, before capturing the whole data for the term, are required actually to resubmit once everything has been captured. Now, under normal circumstances, this is the process that such schools will follow. They will first, the principal will have to write a letter explaining why they should be allowed to resubmit their data. They will explain, maybe the principal will write there 1, 2, 3, 4, because of 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons. This is the reason you are requesting for a resubmission. And this letter will go to the circuit manager, who will then have to write another letter, which is going to be a covering letter. And then the circuit manager will then take those letters to the district office, or they can submit them to the DDD help desk. And then the DDD help desk will go through the letters, make sure that there is a letter from the school and a covering letter from the circuit managers. And then from there, the DDD help desk team will help the school with a resubmission process. So it's a long process. That's why it is important that you actually comply with the circulars that you receive. So if you have submitted abruptly, then you need to follow this process. Right? This is the process that you follow, because if you attempt to submit, you're going to get this message to say you have previously submitted for term 1 2020, 2021. So it will not allow, it will not agree, it will not allow you to submit. But because of what happened the last time, a provision has been made on behalf of such schools to say they will be allowed the resubmission of term 1 data from the 24th to 4th of June 2021. To make sure your Valistractor allows for resubmissions, please restart it then resubmit again. Ignore the pop-up showing below. This only applies to term 1 only, due to some schools submitting final term data without complete data. So for between 24 and 4 June, the schools have a grace period to submit without going through this process at the bottom here. You're still going to get this pop-up, but you can ignore it because a grace has been given between these 2 days, between 24 and 4 June. So you still get the pop-up, but you can just close and dismiss and continue with your submission. And then it will still be, allowed to the dashboard, but only between these 2 dates. And this applies to the schools that submitted before we close for term 1. they've submitted before capturing the data for the term. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's look at the common submissions issues. So there are schools who come across this error that we are seeing on my screen here, and then it will say version string portion was too short or too long. So this error is due to the change in the patches table 20.1.2. So the solution for these schools is to patch to the refreshed version of 20.1.2 or 20.1.3. These two versions are available on Tutor. And then colleagues, please remember, you will see that there is this NB on each of these error messages that we are going to talk to that says, NB, please back up your database before patching. It is important because during the patching process, anything can happen. Your database can be corrupted. Some data can be deleted. So you need to make a backup so that should anything like that happen, you can always go back to your backup and replace the one that is corrupted with the latest backup. So please, let's make it a norm to make a backup before we patch. The next error that the schools come across is this one that says the following problems have been identified in the patch tables. So when a school tries to patch their database using the previous or lower versions, they will come across this error. And then the solution is the error version needs to be removed by MES and IT or SASMs. So I want us to take note that for this error, the schools themselves can fix it by going to Tutor and downloading a refreshed version of 20.1.2 or 20.1.3. The school themselves can fix it. But for this one, we are saying, if you come across this error here, please reach out to your nearest MES officer or IT guys, depending on the provincial layout. Some provinces have the IT, some have MES, but reach out to these people or some at national to ask for a support for this error to be fixed, because as a school, you'll not be able to fix it. The next one is an error occurred exporting SSM's data while running the Valistractor. So these are the errors that come up or pop up when you run your Valistractor or when you attempt to do your submission, your validations. So when you see this error, just know that in the database, there are duplicate subject ID. And then the solution is that you will need to run the SASM's error fix tool and select the restore the subject official link button. So this error, it came with 20.21.1, the new patch. So on Tutor, there is a SASM's version fix with date for May. You download that fix and then you run it on your machine, and then you'll click the first option which says restore the subject official. So you don't have to escalate it. You can fix it at your school. Now let's go to the next one. It's a similar one, but now it's looking at the second option. Can you see this one is speaking to the subject official link? And then let's come to this one. This one is speaking to the following problems have been identified. Validation may fail, subject ID. You do the same. You go to Tutor, you download the SASM's version fix, and then after installing it, you go to option number 2, which speaks to Valistractor subject ID null error. Immediately you click here, it will load, and then it will tell you that your database has been restored successfully. And then when you go to the Valistractor, you will see that the error will be no more. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pause here and check with my two colleagues, Musa and Jerry, to see if we have any questions. And IK as well, colleagues, do we have any questions? Musa?
Thank you very much, Yankee, for that very detailed explanation. And I'm hoping that our audience today is getting some help, some of the issues that they've been having with submission, with resubmission, with patches, and all of the discussion that we've had today. So we do want to take time now to allow some of the questions that have come up to be addressed. So maybe let me start with a question that has been indicated here from Gideon Yanash. And they're saying, can Valistractor be adapted to accommodate independent schools who are not using SASMs for mark purposes? This specifically applies to term 4 when promotions are done. we do a manual promotion without marks, and the Valistractor don't accept the end of term submission. Maybe let me direct this one to Jerry. Is there, Jerry, a standing solution there with regards to independent schools or non-SSM's platforms?
Right, cool. Thank you, Musa. Unfortunately, because the Valistractor and also in terms of the dashboard, it follows an SSM structure officially. So it will be very hard for independent schools because they only capture assessments on the Valistractor. But I know in some provinces, for example, in Gauteng, even though they use third-party schools, they're able to transfer that data into an SSM's compatible database. That's fortunately for them, they came up with that solution. But if you don't capture assessments, especially going forward in term 2, you will see that the thresholds will be back in place. So without assessments captured, you will not be able to submit your full term information. But for your term to date, you will be able to submit because term to date, you are submitting weekly, and it does not really require your full assessments to be captured. So yeah, for your term to date, you will be fine, but your full submission at the end of the term, you will not be able to submit, unfortunately, if you don't have assessments, because that means you're only submitting attendance data. And without assessments, that means even at the curriculum district level, they won't be able to get those analyses.
Great stuff. Thanks for that response, Jerry. And I think having done just a few work with schools in Western Cape who are not using SSMs, I do also want to add there that it is possible that you can speak to the provider of whatever system that you're working on and see if a solution can come from there. Usually they can be flexible and maybe, who knows, might be able to come up with a solution so that your database is compatible with Valistractor. Maybe let me cut to you, IKs, and I know you've been furiously answering questions in the background. Is there a standout question that you feel we can benefit from sharing and asking live?
All right, thank you so much, Musa. And yes, I have been busy answering questions. There's actually a lot of questions to be asked. But, let me just take out two that actually keep coming. So people are actually worried about parts that Yankee actually spoke about, and they did not really get it, So I'm actually letting them know that the pack will be sent to them, then they can rewatch the session again and actually understand that we are actually pressed for time. It's a 1-hour session, so the pack will also be sent to them. Then another one is technicalities on the Valistractor. People saying they have on the icon of the subject, if it's amber, if it's red, what is the issue? So I'm just trying to explain to them, the intricacies that works with the Valistractor and how the process works. Also, Musa, you also alluded to the fact that they can also use the help. So I'm saying that if they would need, because that's actually we're talking about the Valistractor training. So if they would need further training on this, then you are actually at the right slide, Yankee. They must actually take the email address of their DDD project managers there, send them an email and request for Valistractor training. Then they'll be able to be assisted. But those are one of the two most important, but I'm busy responding to rest. Thank you so much. Over to you, Musa.
Thanks, Ike. I'm just filtering some of the questions. Those questions, like Ike said, that is a result of not fully understanding the session today. Colleagues, perhaps a second watch and getting the pack with the slides will assist us there. So I will forego a lot of those questions and actually tackle those with unique issues that our experts in the room can take care of today. Another one here from an anonymous attendee says, what to do when the principal in the school is acting, then the Valistractor school details becomes red, and when you click on the robot, it is written, no principal identified. I think they were just one step away. Anonymous attendee, if you clicked on, after you go to that page that says principal not identified, if you clicked on the question mark on the top right there of the Valistractor, it will actually give you a step-by-step guide on how exactly to repair that on SASAMS. And this actually goes out to all the other questions with regard to specific SASAMS questions, like how do I link an educator? Unfortunately, in this platform, we cannot do a full SASAMS tutorial. However, if you click on the red robot, the page where you are seeing the issues, there is a question mark on all of those pages. If you click on those, they will take you to the instruction manual as far as that issue is concerned on SASAMS. I do want to, at this point, okay, I'm seeing a hand up. Yankee, is that you? Go ahead.
Thanks, Musa. I just want to add to what you just said now with regards to that, to the question from Anonymous, to say this does not only apply to the principal who's acting, but on SASAMS we have the acting position on for the principal and for the educators. So you just have to select it on SASAMS that the principal is acting, and then the Valistractor will be okay. So you just have to flick it there on SASAMS to say Jankilitia, and then position, you just indicate that I'm acting. Even if I'm an educator, you just say the acting educator or replacement or a temporary. It doesn't really matter. The Valistractor will read it accordingly, and then they will not have the error. Thanks.
Thanks for that response, Yankee. Another one here, and I want to direct this one to Jerry. I guess this is a principal who's now learned about the Valistractor, concerned about their school, and they're saying, do you have a list of schools that need to resubmit? I'm not sure about my school, but I think the heart of that question is, how do we make sure that our schools have actually submitted correctly? Jerry, could you mind taking that one?
All right, thank you. But also, I think, let me start with the previous question. So this is when you have to verify your school details, especially with the latest Valistractor update. So if you have someone in an acting position as a principal, obviously you would say, I think there's one problem issue that came out on the help desk. Basically an HOD, because that's your primary position, but then you put acting principal right there. So do not worry about it if it's flagging it, because you don't have a principal in a permanent post, right? Long as you know that as a fact, you don't have to worry about it. You can still submit. It will not stop you from submitting. And also don't be alarmed, because that's just an acting principal that you have at the moment. So once you update that information, you get a principal, or that principal is appointed. Then you'll update the information and it will not come up with the missing details of the principal. So yeah, I don't think it should be a cause for concern. If you get a red, as if you need to update your module 1.1, I think, in Valistractor, in SASAMS. For the next one, there is no way to get the schools or get a list of schools that need to resubmit. It needs to be a manual process where if you have your access, if you, especially at school level, you do have your access, look at your information for term 1. Which is under the summary. If you log on, you find yourself in term to date, go back to the summary tab and look at your information. So one of the things that you'll see, you won't have the curriculum information, and most importantly, you won't also have your promotions for term 1. That's when you know that you need to resubmit. So basically, just go back to that process Yankee spoke about. And also do make sure that when you resubmit, restart your Valistractor, because if you don't do it, some schools I know their computers are always on. So from that date of the 24th May, if you don't restart your Valistractor, your resubmissions will not go through. So just follow that process, but also it's a manual process where you need to look at your data. You need to know when you need to resubmit or not. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jerry. I do have a colleague, Solomon Sosibo, with their hands up. They would like to be granted permission to speak to us directly. I have given them permission, but I just want to ask one more question while they get themselves prepared to ask their question, Jerry. This one is from anonymous attendee, and I think the summary of this question is around the tool being deleted by antivirus. What is our official statement there? But I'll read their question directly. They're saying, what should we do when you're trying to download the error fix 04ME and you get a notification that says Sam's stacks fix is dangerous and has been blocked?
Thank you, Musa. So the issue there is because the fix or the tool is not a patch, right? And it was released by SAMS to rectify the errors that we saw on the Valistractor. So unfortunately, when your antivirus sees this tool, because it's not actually a patch, it classifies it as a virus, even though it's not a virus. We know it comes from SAMS, it is safe. So because of that, there is most of them you can't actually proceed. My advice would be if you have a different computer that you can use, take your database, a copy, run it on your different computer, maybe that does not have the same antivirus as your main computer, and try to run the fix there. I would like to discourage people from disabling their antivirus because you don't want to catch a virus while you try to fix your database, where now your database is now corrupted, and now you have to recapture from scratch. So rather do that as can be. If you don't have another option, rather take your database to EMS so that they can run the fix for you, if that is your last option, or EMS, DISM, or IT support, depending on the province you're in. Thank you.
Thanks for that response, Jerry. I've given Solomon the mic. Sir, would you mind asking your question? And Yankee, be on standby to speak to the question that you have flagged that you'd like to answer from, I believe, Kimberly. So many questions coming in today. My list is going down. I believe Kimberly first, as soon as Solomon has had his go. Solomon, are you there? All right, colleagues, unfortunately, because of time, I'm going to have to move on to the question that Yankee has. Yankee, go ahead with the question from Kimberly first.
Thanks, Musa. So the question, ladies and gentlemen, from Kimberly is asking which documents should be filed in the submission folder that I've mentioned during the session. And then these documents are your deployment report when you submit to your department, and your sign-off document whenever you submit, you just file them in there. Thank you. So it will be your deployment, you file it because it needs to be signed and stamped, and then your sign-off document as well because it needs to be signed and stamped. You just, these are the two documents that you're going to be filing. Thanks, Musa.
Thanks for that, Yankee. We have now launched the polls, colleagues. We're a little bit over time, 2 minutes over time. I think let us allow time for you to give us feedback today on how you experienced the session. Were you assisted? Would you enjoy sessions like this in the future? And all the other metrics that we have that you measure the kind of service you got today. It's a simple multiple choice question, should be answerable within 1 minute. So please, colleagues, please don't leave without addressing the poll. If you're not seeing the poll on your screen at the moment, if you just move your mouse on a laptop, you will see the Zoom bar will appear at the bottom. You're looking for the button that's labeled polls. If you're on your phone, if you just touch the screen, that same bar will appear. Please click on the polls and respond to the polls for us. I have another colleague attempting to ask their question live. This is Alexander. Your surname has been blocked from me at the moment, but Alexander, I've given you permission to speak. Please pose your question, sir. If you could just unmute yourself, you just move your mouse, bottom left of the screen, you'll see the mute icon there. If you click on it and ask your question. Okay. Doesn't seem like I'm connecting with him as well. Jerry, is there a question that came up while you were attending to the question and answers that you would like to highlight at this point?
Yeah, so there's one that I'm looking at that speaks to independent schools. Do independent schools follow their term dates or those of public schools? Yeah, I think this is one of the important things also to note when submitting, especially for the independent schools and also the pre-term schools. So in term 2, please note that we will be following the gazetted dates, term dates by the department. So you will see there's a start date and an end date. So for most private schools, they do follow their own dates, and you will see that they will not be in line with the gazetted term dates. I would not advise you to go with the gazetted term dates, because if you do that, that means whatever dates you have will not be a true reflection of your school dates. So even with your attendance, it won't be aligned to, they won't be aligned to the gazetted term dates. But also that means that you won't be able to submit even for your term dates, your term to date for term 2. When you look at your term to date, even on the dashboard, they will not reflect because you are not aligned to the gazetted term dates. So unfortunately, that is the rules that have been set. Do not be alarmed if you can't submit, but I will definitely advise you not to change your term dates to be aligned to the gazetted term dates, because again, it's like falsifying information, which is not advisable. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Chair. I think we are severely over time, colleagues, and questions are still coming in. IK, I leave to you to make the decision there. Do we answer these questions on text, or should we allow some more time to look at the ones that are still here? Not a lot, just 2 questions that are here. What's your call there?
I think if it's 2 questions, I think we can, just respond to the 2 questions. And yeah, I think we have done fairly good and enough in responding to them. So I think now the questions is 1. So I think we can just respond to that and just call it in.
Thank you, Ike. This one seems like a follow-up from Johannes Mokwetima CV. It sounds like a second piece of the question, but the long story short there is that their final promotion is showing red. What is the solution there? Yankee or Jerry can take this one.
The final promotion is showing red. Most probably they did a manual promotion, which again, if it's manual, it will not be recognized by the Valistractor. So at the moment, there is no solution. But from our side, we are working on making sure that the manual promotions are recognized, because basically when you do an automated, as Yankee mentioned there, it's a different table. Manual promotion is stored in a different table also. So we are trying to look at that to make sure that even manual promotions are recognized by the Valistractor or by the system. So for you, on your side, there is nothing you can do to rectify it at the moment.
Thanks for that response, Jerry. And I think it will also take care of Annette Lugolubi, who posed her question in chats, also along manual promotions being done. And the answer there, colleagues, is that that will look red no matter what we do. So that's the answer there, right? Yeah, with that in mind, looks like we've cleared all the questions and we have some thanks here. Seems that we were able to attend to Johannes, which is great. Yeah, we've done the miracle, gentlemen. All the questions have been responded to. I will now leave to our facilitator to close the session for us.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. Colleagues, I just want to say thank you to all our amazing, the facilitator and all our amazing support for, making sure that the questions are answered and making sure that this webinar comes up today. I hope that we were able to, attend to the attendees' questions. I know that 1 hour also is quite a short time. But we've also looked at, I was busy looking at the post feedback on, people saying that they're not actually going to be too comfortable downloading or updating the latest Valistractor. That was also giving me an idea on maybe we could do something on, updating the Valistractor, but it's just me, thinking. But thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you so much, Musa Yankee, for supporting this session today. And thank you so much, colleagues, for also joining the session. We are actually going to be here next week on Thursday, Friday, same platform with a brand new topic. Do you have any topic that is sitting in your mind that you wish we could, talk about, and we have not talked about it? Please, you can send an email to the help desk requesting that topic. We would actually try and talk about it. But for my side, thank you so much, and have yourself a blessed week. Over to the guys.
Nothing from my side except have an amazing day. A big thank you to Yankee and Jerry for really assisting us with some of the questions around submission today. And thanks to you for staying, even though we've gone a little bit over time. It is a big topic with lots of questions, and I hope you are able to find some value and some assistance in this session. Yankee, over to you.
I just want to thank my colleagues for making today possible, and also you, ladies and gentlemen, for also giving us your time and staying until, even though we have actually gone beyond the 1 hour that we have scheduled you for. I do wish you a great day and a productive weekend. Actually a restful one after a long day, after a long week. So I do wish you a restful weekend. See you next week. Thank you. Jerry?
I'm not going to say much, but I'm also trying to reiterate what IK said. Looking at the approach, it looks like additional training would be needed, especially more focusing more on the usage of the Valistractor and what it means, the foundations of the Valistractor. I think that's something we need to look into. But thank you for attending. I wish you all the best.